Hello, everyone, to another episode of the Coach and Benway podcast. I am your co-host, Dr. Benway. My other co-host, Coach Red Pill, is lurking in the shadows, like the shadow. What evil lurks in the heart of men, Coach Red Pill knows. So today, we're going to talk about something hopefully interesting, in part because in and of itself, we're going to talk about why it's not interesting to me. And it's this. Well, what prompted it was, per usual, I wander through Twitter, like we all do. And Paul Joseph Watson, who always tweets some goddamn thing, is trying to make another case against, Mr. Neely Boy. What's his name? The 49er player who nobody likes.
Kaepernick.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, survey, 43% of people, I assume, less likely to watch sports entertainment because they're too political. My response is, I don't watch it to begin with. So, of course, I can't feel one way or the other. But I'm kind of just curious as to what makes sports on television so interesting to watch. There's very few that I will watch. And, you were interested in talking about this, too. I'm interested in hearing your take.
Well, I don't watch any sports. I think it's boring. It's sort of like, if you can have great sex, why are you going to watch porn? What exactly is the upshot to it? My thinking is that if you enjoy sports, go and do it. But watching it, I can appreciate somebody who's just very good at a sport. Look, I understand the economics of it. I understand the whole notion of making a boatload of money off of some, steroid-infused individuals tossing a ball back and forth. I understand how there is money to be made. I understand that people want to watch it. But I myself do not ever want to watch sports. I think it's dull. Dull as watching paint dry. In Latin America, I hate football. I mean, that is soccer. What in the United States is called soccer and the rest of the world calls football. I think that football is incredibly boring. And, in Latin America, there have been, posses have been made up to go and hunt me down and kill me because of my heretical belief that football is dull, but that's me,
Yeah, for me, it's a little mixed bag. I don't want to say I don't watch any sports because I do, and there are conditions in which I'd watch them, but it leads me to watch some sports over others. And for me, and I think a lot of people I try to ask this question for, they appreciate technique. They appreciate the planning and skills. And, there's a little bit of drama to it as well. I wouldn't lie. But to me, that best is encapsulated by sports which generally aren't mainstream, quote unquote, for America. They're not the big three. They're not basketball, football, or baseball. Mm-hmm. They're generally boxing, sometimes tennis. On occasion, if I feel like I'm in a Conan the Barbarian mood, MMA. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because even though there's plenty of bullshit in boxing around the fight, once you get into the fight, literally nothing but technique and determination can save you, right? And so that's easier to appreciate. It gets itself done. The times are very clear. Football, I can appreciate the plays that are going on, but every 5 seconds is cut to a commercial break to sell you some Cheetos, or let's get the pom-pom girls out. Or, let's have,
I'd appreciate the pom-pom girls. I appreciate the pom-pom girls.
Commentators are always my favorite part of the sport when they say, this is a great play. It's amazing. You got to think through it. He's too spread out. I'm like, does anybody actually think what these guys have to say is interesting? I mean, really, it's just noise. I don't want dead air. Let's have some old son of a bitch talk. Kind of thing.
Well, no, my thinking about sports is okay, like take American football, for instance, okay? So you got these big guys, they're doing these highly, highly structured plays, right? And they're crashing into each other, blah, blah, right? And for me, it's like watching a Transformers movie. What's a Transformers movie? It's a battle between robots, right? And so in a very real sense, it doesn't really matter. It's just whoever decides is the better robot wins. There's no drama for me. There's no interest to me. Okay, I can appreciate, for instance, to give a specific example, I watched the 2008 Wimbledon final between Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, considered by most people to be, if not the greatest tennis match ever played, possibly up there. I also happen to have watched the McEnroe-Borg final in the 1980 Wimbledon, and I also saw the other great match, which I think it was Borg versus Vidal in the semifinals of 80. Or okay, I've seen a number of great tennis matches, and they were very exciting because you were rooting for a particular player. I was into Borg, and I was into what you call a Federer, right? But though I think that Rafael Nadal is a great guy, and I've grown very fond over the years of John McEnroe. But the point I'm trying to make, I felt identified with these players, and so there was like an element of, oh yeah, I'm rooting for this guy. But for these massive robots, or for in basketball, these you know freaks of nature with these pituitary gland problems, I can feel nothing. There's no point in me rooting for any team. In basketball, the last time I rooted for a team was in 91, 92. When the Chicago Bulls had Dennis Rodman, and I thought that Rodman was just electric. He was just this crazy man. And throwing into the mix the personality of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, that was interesting because they had very, very strong and very clearly defined personalities. But other than that, it just seems stupid. I don't know. Like I said, like watching Terminator movie.
I suspect part of this is the degree to which you actually know what's going on or care about the technical details, because then you're obsessed with those details. For example, I don't box, but I know enough about boxing to know when someone's doing an intelligent thing versus a stupid thing.
Yeah.
Even for football, I mean, I know enough about what you have to kind of get done to get to the line. So that's probably driving it a little bit. Funny you had mentioned that tennis match. I actually did see when it was happening live as well, the Nadal Federer tennis match. It was the first tennis match I actually watched, and this was with, several girlfriends passed. I'm watching. I'm like, well, this is very dynamic, and I turned to her and I said, this is probably as good as it's going to get, right? And she's like, yeah, this is probably the best tennis match you'll ever see. I'm like, okay, so my tennis watching career is done.
Yeah.
Which was pretty much it. I've never watched another tennis match since. So that's, 10 years ago or more? Or
do you
play
tennis?
No. I've played tennis in high school, but very terribly.
Let's go from the baseline. What sports do you play? And I'll tell you mine.
I don't really play much of any sports, but badminton. On occasional, when I was younger, I would play football and basketball and baseball, but not in any kind of organized way. Just kids in the playground kind of thing.
Yeah, stickball kind of baseball kind of thing. Yeah, like pickup games of basketball. Okay. In my own case, I'm into skiing and squash. I love to ski. And I love to play squash. I'm rather bad at both. I actually did a video about how bad I was at both. Because I just don't have any talent for either sport, though I'm incredibly enthusiastic about both sports. I love to ski. This past week I set up my ski week vacation for February in Zermatt. I'm going to be spending 10 days there. I can't wait. I'm counting the days literally. But I'm a terrible skier, but be that as it may, I know enough and I can tell when there's a good skier or a bad skier, but I do not watch skiing. It would never occur to me to watch skiing, even though I adore the sport. Ditto with squash. I mean, I love playing squash. I feel that I'm getting a great workout. I feel excited and interested in playing the game, but I have actually, it doesn't even occur to me to watch professional squash players. I wouldn't even know their names, to tell you the truth. I know that there's a professional league, but I wouldn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I doubt any such things are televised other than the Olympics times. You know what I mean?
I think that because squash isn't an Olympic sport.
Squash got to even manage that. Well, there you go. Yeah, well, that's certainly it. And for my love for boxing, partly it's just let's not kid ourselves. I like boxing movies, and it kind of filters its way into the sport itself.
Yeah, but
there's also just something about that kind of, like I said, individual sports. To me, it's like there's. Partly there is hype about boxing, but it's like once you get into the ring, there's less bullshit you can rely on, right? I mean, it's just you're confronted with an opponent and you have to deal with it. There's something very classic about it in a sort of Greek classic sense of the term, which I appreciate, and which is why I also like fencing as well.
Watching fencing or participating?
Watching fencing. I wish when I was younger I had trained to do fencing, because it would have been a skill I would have liked to continue. To have had, or to not continue to have, period. But we'll see. Maybe one day.
No, the thing that I wish when I was young was that my parents had sort of like rotated me through the different sports in terms of playing, not watching, playing. Because like when I was growing up, there was, I grew up in the States and then in Chile. In Chile, there's football that is association football, soccer. And in the United States, there's American football. And I played, flag football. I played softball. I played basketball both in Chile and in the United States. And I was terrible. I wasn't interested in those sports. And it was only in college, when I was in my early 20s, that I discovered squash and discovered how much I loved it. Hate racquetball, hate tennis, love squash. There's something about squash that just appeals to me very much. I like the way the ball bounces, how much effort you need to have to hit the ball, because the ball is it's under pressured ball made of rubber and a very kind of dense rubber. And so what happens is that the ball bounces very, very little. In order for it to really move, you have to whack it quite a bit. You have to heat up the ball. And the ball, for somebody who's never held a squash ball, it has the consistency of like a rubber hose in your car, a little bit softer than that, perhaps. It's not like a bouncy racquetball. The bouncy racquetball, you drop it from, whatever height, and it'll bounce like 60, 70%. Squash ball doesn't. You drop it, and it'll bounce maybe 10%, if that. It bounces very little. And so you have to really reach for it and hit it, and it's hard, and it demands a lot of technique and a lot of speed and a lot of cardiovascular. You have to be in good shape, and it gets you in good shape very quickly, and it wipes you out really fast. It doesn't seem so. I've played racquetball, I've played tennis, and it's just not as exciting and not as physically demanding. And so I'm just not interested. And I wish that when I'd been younger, I'd gone through all the sports, including squash, so I could have picked it up earlier. Because I realize now that I would have been crazy for squash, in my adolescent years and my teen years, and I would have played it like relentlessly if I'd known about the sport,
Well, my elementary school through high school got us playing the basic American sports, which made it kind of dull for me. I don't think they were very interesting. So we did basketball, baseball, football, but also soccer, volleyball. Badminton was the only one I actually enjoyed, which, people think, oh, that's just a lazy game. No, if you
it's hard.
Badminton is hard if you know how to play, and I did enjoy it. So you go through all those sports, but to me, they were kind of dull. I perhaps, in retrospect, wish I had more of the gentlemanly upbringing, which would have been the three sports I would have wanted to do, and to this day still would have enjoyed: boxing, fencing, and then horseback riding. Which that is a sport of a different era and class, and the money wasn't there to do that. In retrospect, I would have enjoyed that, but that's neither here nor there. The sports that I was, like I said, brought toward, I developed the techniques to know how you succeed in them, how you win. But becoming a spectator of them is less enjoyable for me because it's just so super saturated, right?
Yeah,
they're just ever present and they're their own thing. In the one instance, which I say there's a rare exception, is I will enjoy watching baseball, but not on television. I will enjoy going to the park to see it. But that's not, original thought. I know a lot of people say that because when you go to the baseball stadium, it isn't just the baseball game you're watching, you're getting the experience of the park. And you feel this in particular if you go to an older stadium like Wrigley or Fenway. You don't really get it at the newer stadiums because it still feels like a corporate kind of park.
Yeah, it's totally corporate park.
Yeah, but for those older stadiums, and I'm sure a lot of people who listen to us probably have gone to one or both of them, they're worth it. But then you're getting an experience of old America. You're not so much. It's like I'd say about 50% of your time is watching the game.
Yeah, I mean, like, for instance, when I was living in London, one of the things I regret that I didn't do when I was there, foolishly, I didn't go to a football match there. I just didn't get around to it, and now I regret it because the experience of the spectacle and the feel of the crowd. The game in and of itself, I could care less. I find it just incredibly tedious. And here's the weird thing. Why is it that the super popular sports are so goddamn tedious? Football, association football, soccer. Association football is the most popular sport on earth. And if you ever watch a football match, it is just dull as watching paint dry. They go here, they go there, they go here, they go there. It's just boring,
Well, I think there's a certain crop of men who just love over-engineered process. And I'm not even like exaggerating that. Like football in particular, it's like you do this play versus that play, but we're gonna have to pause for a timeout review, and that takes several minutes, and you got your goddamn commercials and all of this. There's just some.
Oh, you're talking about American
it.
football. You're talking about American football.
Either one, frankly, will do this. There's a lot of these sports have just an exorbitant amount of process.
No, but that's like American football. American football, yeah, it's so goddamn structured, and special teams and this and that and all kinds of rules and baseball, the same thing. It's just like, endless rules, and it's just, or cricket. I've never understood fucking cricket, but obviously people love it because it's one of the most popular sports in India and Pakistan and the UK and Australia and New Zealand, and I could never make heads or tails of it, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand why people would honestly watch it.
Well, that's part of the thing, and I'll give you a corollary once I explain what I think is going on. I think there's a certain crop who says like, because it takes a lot of effort to know this, I feel like part of an in crowd, and I can demonstrate my knowledge in a way that kind of justifies the effort. And the lay person, it's like, hey, I can go to the lay person, spend all this time explaining it to them, and they feel like I'm a mage of this. The closest example I could think of it is in comics sometimes, especially when you have these big crossover events. An average person would say like, hey, I just want to read this basic story here. Where do I start reading this character? When someone can turn around and say, well, depending on the run, this event happened, but that, you need to understand what happened. And if you want to know what Spider-Man is, you have to see what happened in Avengers crossover 37 and all of this other thing. It's the same idea. It's like you have secret knowledge here that enables you to enjoy it when others can't. And I feel that sometimes people get off on that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, most certainly. Okay. There is that feeling of being on the inside and knowing the ins and outs of something, and that somebody else wants to know about it, no matter how trivial it is. I mean, come on, comic books are trivial. Let's not kid ourselves, right?
Well, I mean, frankly, everything in life is trivial. That's my
attitude. Well, yeah, that's very true. But I don't understand how you can watch something. I go back to the whole issue of having sex versus watching pornography. Between one or the other, I'll have sex. I won't watch porn. Why would I bother? Ditto with watching sports. If I can either watch a sport or play the sport, I'll go and play the sport because it's more fun.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people who watch the sport can't play it, and they will live vicariously through the team.
Yeah, but neither can I. I mean,
but here's the thing: you can't dismiss it too quickly, because think of how many times you've heard when let's say in Chicago 2 years ago when the Cubs finally won the World Series, right? Mm-hmm. I can guarantee you 99% of the Chicagoans who watched that responded with the exact same words: "We won." And my response always, "Who's this we, shitface? You watched it. You watched it happen, and it was the team in our area. We didn't do shit. They won. You were there, or you paid attention to it." But that I can't dismiss that, because it always happens that way. People really get it's the closest and only approximation that is left for a lot of people of tribal loyalty.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a joke because these players freelance their way in and out of teams like no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
So you're really just rooting for colors. Yeah. And you're rooting for a home base.
Yeah.
The team really isn't loyal to you any more than you should be loyal to them. But this is a truth of the matter with a lot of the sports. And it's something I think partly drives why people watch it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going back to the conversation we had the other day with Patrick Janine about why liberalism failed. We were talking about culture and the anti-culture and how the commerciality of all culture, or let me phrase it, all culture has been turned into ersatz culture, a product to be sold. Same happens with these teams. You're not affiliated to these teams because these teams are not of your city. They're simply bought and paid for players who are assembled and have similar colors. And the whole notion is to have the team so that you'll buy the tickets to go to the stadium so that the owners will make money, and that you'll buy the T-shirts of the team so that the owners will make some money. That's the whole point of it. There's nothing there. It's the illusion of belonging to a team, quote unquote, to being a fan of the team. But you're not actually a fan of the team because those team members they are changing faster than the ship of Theseus's planks. You know what I mean? It's just they go in, they go out, and so yeah. I mean, I was rooting for the Chicago Bulls, the '92 team, because they were like interesting people. Okay, and they were obviously very, very talented. But what was interesting was the dynamic and how they like clashed and all the rest of it, right? And there was that team, the Utah Jazz or whatever, who were like the also rans of that year. I remember there was this big black guy and the short little white guy, John Stockton or Stockman, I forget, who was the short white guy. And yeah, it was fun to watch them, but I didn't feel affiliated to them. I mean, I was rooting for the Chicago Bulls, but I didn't really care, and it was just a one-off thing. It was because this sort of like. It wasn't even because I was that interested. What happened was that a couple of the people I was living with, I was sharing a house with a couple of guys, and these guys were into it heavy. And so I was like watching along, and sure, I'll get into it. And my roommates were there, and so they were rooting for Chicago. So sure, I'll root for Chicago, even though I'd never been to Chicago. To this day, I've never been to Chicago, and so it was like just empty.
Well, and for me, I was a little kid during this golden age of the Bulls. I think through most of it happened. Most of their titles happened before I was 10. But I can say just simply, yes, partly it was the personalities, and it was just part of the culture everywhere. I mean, Michael Jordan is in a fucking Looney Tunes movie for God's sakes. But being locally to the team, it was that. I wouldn't say pressure. It's not like people demanded I enjoy it, but it was there. It was just it was part of the local pride. And it happens all the time when a local team is doing well. I can guarantee you, like when the Blackhawks won their Stanley Cup a few years ago, the city went fucking crazy. Yep. I could barely get into work because on a Friday, when they had their celebrations, every last son of a bitch from the suburbs flood into the city in the main streets, and my office was not far from where the celebration was. I'm like, I just need to get to my fucking job, people. Let me through, god damn it. Yeah. Shit like that happens a lot. Like I said, it's people want to be part of a community in some way without doing a lot of the work, unfortunately. But it manifests itself this way. Mass demonstration, right?
Yeah. Well, in Philadelphia last January for the Super Bowl, they rioted in Philadelphia when they won. Imagine if they'd lost, which was just ridiculous. But anyway,
France got set on fire too, didn't they? After they won the World Cup this year.
Yeah. Just a whole nightmare there. But here's the thing, especially with team sports, because with individual sports, with actual individuals playing, and you get to know them a little bit. And you get to root for them, or you hate watch them. I mean, I remember, when I was a kid, people would hate watch John McEnroe. They hated his guts, and so they'd turn out to watch him and hiss at him and boo at him. It was 2 minutes of hate kind of situation. And then there were the other players that everybody liked, like Stefan Edberg, like Vidas Gerulaitis. I forget. There are a whole bunch of tennis players that people really liked. And then there was Federer, of course, who not only was the most elegant player to ever play the game. I mean, he is an extraordinarily elegant athlete. He's a nice guy, a nice family man, nice wife, a bunch of kids, He's like the perfect embodiment. He's like the platonic ideal of the professional sports star. More than Tiger Woods, by the way. Another case. I mean, people would identify with these people.
Yeah.
And
it's just the drama just seems to me very clear when it's an individual sport, because you get all of the details, like you said, of the personalities. To me, I remember in my case, the last great boxing match that I ever saw. It was when Lennox Lewis, quote unquote, won against one of the Klitschko brothers, but in reality he lost. So the situation was, this was like around, I forget the exact year, but let's just say the early 2000s when this happened. Prior to that, Lennox Lewis, who was the heavyweight champion of the world, I think lived in England, right? Black guy, but I think from England. He had defeated one of the Klitschko brothers who underperformed. It was an embarrassment. So I think the elder Klitschko brother fought for his brother's honor, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bloody fight to the end. Lennox Lewis never had his face busted up so aggressively like it was in that fight. It went to the cards. They voted for Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, you could tell, was like not just physically wounded, but morally and emotionally ruined. He'd never gone through that beating, and he had to justify to his self, like, "Oh, just I won this fight. No, there's no question. Look at the condition of his face." And he says that his face is puffy and bleeding, and it's never been that way before in any of his fights. And he retired immediately after that. And so that bit of drama sticks with me to this day. It's like Clash of the Titans kind of situation. And unfortunately, after that, I know there was a long period of time there was no interesting heavyweight fights because nobody wanted to fight the Klitschko brothers.
Yeah.
They wouldn't fight each other too, which would have been the natural.
Yeah, but they're never going to happen. No.
Exactly. So, that bit of drama and, it's just very clear to me when it's just individuals fighting. You don't have this whole like, oh, yes, sometimes you get, rooting for my country. So, for example, the Klitschkos, they're Slavs, they're Ukrainians. So naturally I have more affinity for them than for Lennox Lewis. But beyond that, it's like, well, there's the Klitschko brothers. They have their own personalities and skills. I can respond to them one way or the other. Lennox Lewis, same thing. There's no other team members that can float around. There's no genericization of like, oh, I like this, the green and the gold of
okay,
Green
but
Bay
okay,
versus...
fine. I understand your point that you like these, but why are you following them specifically? Is it because they're performing well and therefore they're winners, and therefore you start to pay attention to their personality? But it's their performance that breaks the surface tension of your attention, if you will. Pardon the expression. I mean, their proficiency is what garners attention first, and then you start paying attention to their personality, and then you start to like their personality. But ultimately, what are you rooting for? You're rooting for the winner. It's I don't know.
Not necessarily. I'm rooting for the drama. I mean, I certainly hope they win.
Oh, wait, even why are you rooting for anybody? Nothing's riding on it. I'm not asking you specifically. I'm asking in general.
That's like saying, like, why do you read a story and why do you come to identify or why do you come to have preference for one conclusion over the other? I can't give you a rational reason for it. There is none that's worthy of being held up as this is why, and we should ensure that. It just happens because it's human condition.
Yeah, and what's weird is this whole notion that we love to see our sports figures that we've idolized be brought down and then rise up phoenix-like, and we're seeing this redemption arc with Tiger Woods, right? So Tiger was untouchable in the late 90s. He was like there's that joke, how is the PGA like the KKK? It's one black man ahead of 20 white guys chasing him or something like that. It was everybody rooted for Tiger Woods because he embodied like a number of things. First of all, he was young, he was a handsome kid, he was a black kid. He was brought up right by his old man who was like a Green Beret and stuff, and that played a lot when in the late 90s. I remember a lot of people talked about that they thought, man, he was like a Green Beret in Vietnam. And he raised his kid right, and of course they didn't mention that the old man had other children that hadn't turned out so well as Tiger, and that the old man had focused on Tiger because Tiger was athletically gifted, and his other kids he'd blown them off, right?
Right.
Nobody mentioned that part. So anyway, the Tiger Woods embodied like a number of things. He was a good-looking kid. Young kid, brought up right. He was well-spoken in the sense of like not just a black man who spoke proper English, but also like you could tell that he was a controlled individual who's not going to embarrass himself. And then his old man died, and he started just embarrassing himself one after the other. I mean, he married this beautiful woman. I mean, it was like the picture-perfect postcard, right? And then it all went to shit with like, hookers and bottle girls or whatever the hell they were. Right, and his whole world went down the tubes. Right, he lost the pretty Swedish wife. He lost his career. He started losing. It just became this big loser and a joke, really. And as of late, in the last year, I mean, didn't he win a couple of tournaments as of late?
He just won very recently. In fact, the president applauded him for it.
Yeah,
amongst other reasons.
So he's coming back apparently.
Well, here's the thing, and what this is why I had said not too long ago that Rocky was basically going to be of the Huck Finn quality of American consciousness
Yeah.
and tradition. Because of this, he completely embodies that story. You know, schlubby guy gets a chance, gets to the top. By Rocky 3, he's the the complexities of his victory wound him, and he's defeated, and he has to reaffirm himself. And you go through all the great stories of a hero, what challenges he would face. We want that. We enjoy that. I mean, that's what you get from a lot of these, particularly individual sports. Team sports, like I said, it gets complicated.
Yeah.
But for individual sports, they operate on that level. We want to see rise, and fall.
Yeah.
And it's the nature of the stories. Because I think fundamentally we all know that people go through low patches, they go through high patches. It oscillates. They want to see that the people in front of them are human and go up and down like the rest of us. So even in moments where it's like some guy's going down, you may still be sad but happy. I say but happy because you realize, okay, he's not a god.
Yeah.
He's a human. He's achieved a lot more than many of us will achieve.
Yeah.
But he's still a human.
Yeah.
And sports kind of, like I said, a lot of individual sports, I think, just give you a vehicle to do that without having to go to war, amongst other things.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're basically glorifying like the Achilles figure. That's what's going on. Yeah. I find it interesting. I find it interesting also that a lot of times you have the designated hate object. Like I mentioned before, John McEnroe, he was hate watched before the term existed. People would tune in to hiss at him, and I remember in the in Wimbledon, people love to throw shit to not throw anything, but rather just hiss at him and boo him, and they almost egging him on to misbehave on court at Wimbledon, because Wimbledon is such a staid and proper environment. The British. After living in England, by the way, I have a very low opinion of the Brits. They have this tremendous knack for socially intimidating people into thinking that something is more sacred and pristine than it actually is. Wimbledon is just a tennis tournament, and it's a money-grubbing little tennis tournament. That's all it is. But, in Wimbledon, the strawberries and cream and all that crap, and the ladies in their hats and such, it creates this illusion of propriety. And people were egging him on to break that propriety, to make a fool of himself. That's what they wanted. It was just really quite funny. I mean, I remember I was 10, 12 years old when I was watching those matches. And I could remember, realizing at that time that they just want him to have a meltdown. They just want they want to provoke him until he just like screams at the umpire. And he would, he'd deliver. He would deliver the entertainment for the masses. And I suppose that's,
great heroes need great villains, and we still cast people as if they're playing these parts. I mean, honestly, like I could tell you, like, Mike Tyson was
the baddest man on the planet.
But then after he bit Holyfield's ear off, we needed him. Well, he didn't bite the whole ear off; he bit a part of it,
big chunk of it.
But we could see it on TV. That was, as much as people hated Tyson after that. Trust me, there were some people who were annoyed with him. I watched it too. There were people who were annoyed with him and angry with him before that, but the Tyson as the asshole was cemented by that little nibble.
Yeah,
I assure you. And after that, it's like every goddamn time they loved that moment. I guarantee you, everybody remembered that ear biting, and as disgusted as they wanted to articulate how they felt about it, that was the high bit of drama, because you still want it. We still operate under the assumption that we need these dramatic moments.
Yeah.
Whether anybody would have thought, oh, what we really need to make this fight spicy is a little bit of Hannibal Lecter moment. But that's what it was. It functioned, right? I mean, and we wanted it. And yeah, so from that point on, we wanted Tyson to play that role. To your point with McEnroe, it's like, oh, he's a crazy ass son of a bitch. We want him to do that. I want to I tune into this episode to make sure that it's like the episode yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tune in tomorrow for the next craziness of McEnroe or Mike Tyson. Yeah, I remember Iron Mike. Yeah, when he hit the scene like in '87 or so. That's when he
Yeah,
hit my consciousness at least. Yeah, he was just the baddest man on the planet. He was just badass, and everybody was fucking terrified of the guy because he would kill you in the first round. It wasn't just like he would knock you out. It wasn't like Muhammad Ali, who with that
pity pat you until you got tired. Yeah,
yeah. Muhammad Ali was just a beautiful fighter. Okay, especially young Muhammad Ali. I mean, God only knows what would have happened had he not been suspended because he refused to step forward for the draft, right? Because those years were the best years of his life, and he lost them. And there was 3 years, those 3 key years that were lost forever. Because before that, when he was Cassius Clay, he had such incredible technique. It was only later that he developed that power, but that beautiful technique of being able to move anywhere in the ring. Just the beautiful footwork and that speed was just incredible, right? But Mike Tyson, no, he was like this train. He was going to run you over and just chew you up, right? And it was very, very exciting to watch him. But yeah, you hated him because he was just he was like evil incarnate because he was so strong. That was the thing. He was so strong and so relentless, machine-like, that you were scared of him. It was like the closest thing to the Terminator. Okay, to the Terminator. I'm not thinking of like the cuddly Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm talking about the first movie Terminator. That relentless killing machine. That was the vibe of Mike Tyson. And parenthetically, he always denied that rape allegation, that rape accusation, that he served prison for it. And I always believed him. I always believed that he got fucked over just because he was hated so much. And I think that the jury that convicted him just wanted to convict him because he's Mike Tyson. He's just this nasty black man, and just shove him in jail for a while. And I honestly don't think that he did it. Yeah, because he had the opportunity.
I can believe that.
Yeah, he had the opportunity to pay his way out of it, and he didn't take it. He was like, fuck it, I didn't do it. And he went to jail for it. That's why I always thought so. But anyway, it was and now Mike Tyson is just sort of sad,
Well, I mean, he has his popularity and he makes money off of it, so I don't begrudge him that. Yeah, for sure, it could be sad depending on your perspective. But the whole state of boxing right now feels sad to me. I don't really see too many great, interesting narratives playing themselves out. In part because I don't know that there are any great heavyweight champions anymore, and plus it just feels to have fallen out of the culture a little bit. Used to be a little bit bigger. Doesn't seem so now. I think MMA has kind of stolen a lot of that thunder.
Well,
I don't watch a lot of
MMA is
but
more exciting.
Well, did you hear the kind of? Did I ever tell you like the origin of the octagon in MMA?
Mm-mm.
John Milius. Apparently, the guys who were starting up MMA were talking to John Milius for why I don't know. Mm-hmm. And Milius supposedly said, you have to have them in an octagon-shaped arena, and it should have a cage around it. And he went so far as to say it should be dug into the ground, and there should be, vestal virgins on white horses following around, and there should be, it should be lit with anti-aircraft gun lights a la Lenny Riefenstahl. And I thought to myself, my God, it should have been that way, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
But if there was any hint that John Milius was our guy, it is that statement and that request by far. But it has that kind of crude, old-fashioned element of, like I said, Roman barbarism in the best way. And this is the truth of the matter, which people hate me for saying, but I firmly believe. If we ever go back to true gladiatorial style combat, it will be the most popular sport you could ever conceive of. People would be paying tooth and nail just to see it.
Actual killing people?
Actually killing people in the ring. There's no doubt about it. I know my Christian upbringing tells me you should be ashamed for conceiving that. Well, I know how humans are, and I know what we want to see.
I think that's in the cards. I think that's on its way. Because, again, referencing back to the Deneen conversation, when he was talking about how in academia they're talking about that notion of cutting off your limbs because you feel alienated from that limb, right? Well,
Mhm.
that's just a short hop, skip, and a jump from somebody saying, I'm willing to risk my life. Why shouldn't I be allowed to? And you just sign away your right to, your body's inviolability, and just go for it. What's stopping you? And let me ask you. I mean, seriously, if people were to say, yes, I'm willing to risk my life, and if I die in the ring, that's okay, and I don't hold the other person responsible, what should happen? Should that be allowed? I think that there aren't really any arguments in the liberalism that we live in that would negate that. You know, classical liberalism or progressive liberalism does not have arguments to stop that. To stop that argument of like, okay, it's my body. I have bodily autonomy. I choose to risk my life in a battle to the death, where I know that for a fact that one of us will die in the ring. I
Well,
think there's
the
no
only
argument.
I mean, the only argument I could conceive of is the argument they used against duels. But other than
Which
that,
was,
I think because it disrupted the transference of property and whatnot. I think was the main argument, but also that you took the leader, you were decimating the leadership position. They were not going to allow that to continue.
yeah.
But odds are, this would not be amongst
No,
the
obviously not. I mean,
the leadership class. By and large, wouldn't
no
participate. Though
way.
some could, some would. There's always a Commodus, right? There's
Hmm.
always an emperor who wants to do it. But I could see it happening. I don't see in this day and age people responding with a moral argument against it, other than to just say aesthetically it's distasteful. Oh, like because there's always bimbos or idiots or beta guys who like, oh, I don't like sports. Period. They
Hmm.
shouldn't happen. But beyond that, nothing. Nothing is really
Well,
good.
yeah. I mean, like, this whole conversation, if people want to watch sports, I don't have anything against it. I don't have any problem with it. People want to watch a sport, fine, so be it. I just think it's boring. There are certain sports in particular that I'm very distasteful, like golf, for instance. Don't understand that, but we'll get to that in a second. Going back to this issue of like a fight to the death, I find it very intriguing. I find it. I mean, I'd never thought of it, to tell you the truth, until you brought it up just now. And I'm thinking that I would pay good money to see that, no question. You know, um, I'm wondering under what conditions would it be, like an MMA kind of caged fighting?
I think it would be like it would if it happened again. I think they would play off of the traditions from whence it came. They will rebuild the Colosseum or something that looks like it. It will be this grand spectacle of one guy versus another in whatever protective gear he wants to give or
Hmm.
nothing. And I think they would play off of that. It's beyond nostalgia because there's no living memory of this, but they would play off of that imagery. I can easily imagine and say, oh, for this Sunday special, we're gonna pull out the fucking lions, and you have to not only fight to the death, but the lions will chase around you. That will be the thing people protest because they're upset that lions would be subjected
Yeah,
to
yeah.
violence.
No, but I mean, I could
But
see
beyond
like,
that, yeah,
yeah, I could see an MMA octagon where basically there's no referee. They're like, okay, do whatever you want. You can gouge eyes, you can hit in the balls, whatever you want, and just go for
yeah,
it. And let's see who wins, who survives. And
right,
fuck technique, fuck everything. This is to murder somebody.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that a lot of people would watch it. Yeah, I think so. And reconsidering, I would not want to watch that, because I'd be horrified. I would, and I think frankly that something essential in my soul would die if I were to watch such a death match. Yeah, I think that such a death match would harm my soul in a way that could not be repaired. I don't quite know
Well,
how, but
I think people would go to watch it precisely at a moment when they have no confidence in the existence of their soul to begin with.
yeah, well, probably,
Uh, by the,
yeah,
by that I mean either they're purely materialistic or they've reached a moral conclusion that there's nothing worth saving
yeah,
in this
yeah,
society, and they kind of we didn't care anymore. It's funny when this happens in narrative fiction.
yeah.
It operates that level. Think of two examples. I know they're both movies, but they kind of illustrate it. In Conan the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
Conan does become a gladiator earlier in the film, but it comes when he didn't care. It says explicitly in the narration he didn't care anymore. Life, death was all the same. The only thing that motivated him was the cheers of the crowd. This is him at his lowest nihilistic point.
Right.
Before later in the film, he rebuilds
Right.
his moral courage.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the movie Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Are you entertained? Yeah.
are you entertained? He at his lowest point, he will participate because it doesn't fucking matter. It's your pure nihilistic point, and we're a fairly nihilistic society, I would say. I mean, you and I, at the very least, talk about being black-pilled. I wouldn't say that's nihilism, but that is certainly just lack of hope.
Yeah, an
Or
extreme cynicism. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
Those are the right conditions to enable people to
Or
watch this.
let me rephrase it. Black pill, I think it means that we ourselves are not nihilists, but we recognize that the society around us is. I think that would be a working definition of being black pilled. And therefore we view the world in a very jaundiced way, even though, quite frankly, even the most black pilled motherfucker still has hope that at least he himself is not beyond salvation, about the society, he can't say. But anyway, going back to this thought experiment that, yeah, I think that there are going to be people who are going to argue it. And I think that, I don't think that this is going to be far away. That this might be a lot closer than you think. That just, and I would suspect that it would happen this way. Some kind of grudge match on MMA or whatever. And, because there are always grudge matches. And so it doesn't really matter which one. You don't have to wait around for a grudge match. All of them are grudge matches. But the point is, it's a grudge match and one of the participants dies in the ring. And the guy who wins, who survives, is like, fuck him. I don't care. And I think that would be the moment that people would say, like, yeah, let's see more of this. Because, hey,
it's look, like Ivan Drago. He dies. Yeah, that's what. Well, I think that's right. It could happen, quote unquote, accidentally.
Quote unquote, accidentally. And the thing is, see, that moment of that death of that guy would be tweeted, retweeted endlessly. And of course, they try to ban it on Twitter and YouTube, because of the sake of, non-existent morals. They'd like wave around this gauze thin notion of morality. But people would watch it. And there'd be lots of channels showing it, so many that YouTube wouldn't really be able to shut it off, or Twitter wouldn't be able to shut it off. And people would get off on it, and people would be like, let's see more of this. And some enterprising promoter would be like, yeah, I know a couple of guys who are willing to get in a ring and fight to the death. And they do it probably in some place where they could get away with it. Like in Asia, perhaps, or who knows where, some place where
on a boat in the ocean, frankly.
Hell yeah, yeah, international waters, boat in the ocean. The captain says it's okay, and boom, presto, changeo, they do it. Yeah. Look, I would not be surprised if such death matches are actually occurring now, and that have been occurring for a while among the more decadent of the oligarchs of the various places around the world. Some of the more, the Asiatic countries like Kazakhstan and what have you, they're fucking barbarians. Okay, I mean they really are, and I would not be surprised if some of those people are having like cage death matches for their private amusement. It would just be making it for the masses and making a buck off of it. You know what I'm saying? That's depressing.
Yeah, I think it's in the cards. I mean, there's a matter because it's. You know why it's in the cards? Because it easily happened in the past, even amongst societies that were kind of well put together. I mean, right? Yeah. Even in the Roman times, by the end of the Republic, certainly, all those matches just were the most popular sport. That's what people wanted to see. Now, it wasn't always a death match because you wouldn't kill off some of your most valuable gladiators, but little rinky-dink guys who didn't give a shit, you fucking kill them. You'll feed the Christians to the lions. Goddammit, sure. That's entertaining. Yeah. It could happen. I mean, and funny thing enough, I thought to myself, like, if they do feed another religious group to the lions again, who would it be? And my immediate thought was, it's clear, it's the Christians again. Where, especially in the West, the Christians will be fed to the lions again.
Yeah. They wouldn't want any Muslim or
they wouldn't
Jew
want to.
Or
they wouldn't want to
else,
offend that. Yeah, but trust me, when the Christians are eaten by the lions, I guarantee you it will be halal. So.
No, look, I think that, God, that's kind of depressing to think about this. Because like I said, I would not watch such a thing because I think that to watch something like that would degrade you in a way that you could not take back, it's kind of like a stain on you. And this is transitioning the conversation a little bit. I don't believe in God, and I do not believe in an afterlife. And I tend to think that this is it. Okay, I wish I did believe, because it would give me some comfort in many ways. But I simply don't. I have not been blessed with the power of belief. Yet I do believe that there is such a thing as a soul. I don't quite know what it is, okay? But there is a thing within you that is you. And it is spirit. I cannot define it, and I'm not going to even bother to try to define it in this conversation. But I do believe that some things you can experience, you can watch, you can hear about, that stain your soul in a way that cannot be cleared away. Does this make any sense to you? I know it sounds kind of like, I don't know how it sounds like, but I do believe that there's such a thing.
There's certainly a moral compromise you're going to make by participating.
No, but it's beyond that. I do believe that there are certain things that can happen to you that you can witness.
Yeah, but I know the way you respond, that you are not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You say like, oh, it will stain you forever. Yes, it will, but there's also why I'm a Catholic, and maybe you're not in this way, is that there is, to presume that you will always be stained precludes the possibility of forgiveness and absolving of sins. Under extreme conditions, you have to get to that point.
No. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about moral responsibility. What I'm saying is that to witness certain things, to allow yourself to be in the presence of certain things, stains you, besmirches you in a way that cannot be wiped away. And
I disagree. It will. You can wipe everything away. That is the point of of Christian religion. But under certain extreme circumstances, will that happen?
Well, I'm not going to get into a religious argument. I'm not interested in it. But
it's like to say you would never clean it is to say there's no way God could ever forgive you for something, and that is just flatly false.
No, it's not an issue of God forgiving me. It's not that I did something. It's that I think that the damage to you is such that you cannot repair it. Okay. For example.
No, I know what you're saying. I just don't believe it. But that's the nature. That's a religious ideology. That's
it's that I guess I don't see it so much as a religious thing as perhaps a psychological thing, in the sense that there are certain things that I have witnessed, right, that left me forever changed. I'm not going to get into the specifics of them, but they were fairly horrifying. And there were things I wish I'd never seen, because they showed me truths about human being and human beings, and about reality and our existence that I wish I were still innocent and ignorant of.
Well, there I'll agree with you. There will be the human response to these things is going to be extreme. And yes, there will be certain folks who, upon seeing someone die in a ring for entertainment purposes, will never forget it.
Mm.
Others will treat it like a fucking lark.
Yeah.
And move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that will certainly happen. It's like if you had been in Eastern Europe between 1939 and 1945, you will not forget what you saw. It's
right.
Just that. Certainly I can envision, especially, in a nasty fight, yeah, you're going to remember.
Yeah.
And you will feel guilty about it, or maybe you will just can't escape the thought from your mind. I don't know how it would play out, but I can believe that.
Yeah. I mean, you basically said it, that those things, you see them and they change you, and there's no way to go back. And you see a side of humanity that is just, that in many ways you want to be innocent of, because you don't want to have those thoughts, those negative emotions rattling around in your head. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I think that, the more we discuss it, the more I think likely that's going to be the end stage. Yeah, because it makes sense. I mean, who gives a shit? How can you compare watching the PGA US Open with a bunch of well-off guys in funky clothes hitting a little white ball around? How can you compare that to watching a couple of people fight to the death? There's
Well,
no
yeah,
comparison.
you're gonna see this fantastic event where two men literally fighting until one is gone, and there will be the dramatic heights and everything you can imagine, the screaming of the crowd, and then you cut to the other channel. It's like, oh, it's under par.
Oh yeah,
Projected. It's,
like and like all
yes, he's on
hushed
the green.
voices. Yeah,
He's on the green. It's like, yeah, odds are no one's watching this. I have to
yeah,
whisper. I have to whisper because if this channel is on, it's accidental and someone's sleeping in the next room.
yeah. And probably all of our viewers are sleeping as they're watching this stupid golf thing. Don't understand golf. Don't understand it at all. I mean, like I played golf like 2, 3 times in my life. Okay, I got so goddamn stressed out by that goddamn sport. Okay, I mean because it was just so tension inducing. Okay, and I
Can I
realized.
tell you about? I love the honesty of my high school when they taught us golf.
Oh,
They said, "Look, their honesty was this," and I think that's why I appreciate it. It's like, look, we know most of you won't play this in any substantial kind of way. We just want you to have this skill because we know business meetings will or sometimes happen over golf, and we want you to just be prepared for that.
That's
fucking
honest. That's fucking honest. I can get behind that approach. But actually playing golf, no way. I mean, like I said, I've played like 3, 4 times. And the thing is, see, I've also done Tai Chi. And I hated that for the same reason. Because it's all about being very, very slow and controlled. Okay? And being very conscious of the moment as opposed to just allowing yourself to react and go with the flow. Okay? And I hated it. I hated it because it was just nerve wracking and boring. And I felt like every minute playing golf, every minute of doing Tai Chi was an eternity. Whereas when I played squash, which is just constant motion and just running here, running there, chasing that little ball all over the court, time just flew by. I mean, I would play for a couple of hours with some friends, right? And like a round robin kind of thing. And, 2 hours just fly by. I didn't even realize it, And I was just exhausted, dripping wet with sweat, but just feeling terrific, just feeling really energized and just, top of the world, right? Did Tai Chi. I remember I did it like for 15, 20 minutes. I wanted to kill somebody. I was just so aggravated and annoyed by that godforsaken quote unquote sport. But anyway.
Well, what you've articulated is, in theory, what the sport. There should be little more to sports than fundamentally fulfilling that core deed, which is to say, you are entertained in the process of physical activity, right?
Yeah.
Because all sports is, in my mind, a gloss that you would put over the physical exercises you have to do to stay in shape, right?
Exactly.
I mean, because in theory, because we're not going to war, like I said, you're not fighting into the death as of now. But you have to do all these physical activities so you don't curl up into a ball and die. And
So you don't turn into
to just do weightlifting, to just do running, to just do the bike, it can get tedious. A sport allows you to do those motions, those activities, those exercises, but be distracted with competition.
Exactly right. Exactly. And it's great. I mean, like, I have a blast when I'm playing sports, like skiing, the same thing. I have a tremendous amount of satisfaction of skiing well when I catch a line, on a mountain and just like ski it cleanly, it's just a tremendous satisfaction because it just feels, because there is something to be said about when you're playing a sport, any sport, and executing a move cleanly and as it should. Like when and you're playing tennis or any racket sport for that matter, and you hit the ball in the sweet spot and you feel it in your arm. Like playing squash, hitting the ball right at the sweet spot and feeling it like that perfect vibration, like a certain frequency just go from the racket through my hand, up my arm and into my whole body. And I felt like a tuning fork, I felt that I was striking the ball in such a perfect place on the racket and with such perfect pace and perfect everything. And, for that brief moment of that ball strike, I felt like in tune with everything. There was a brief glimpse of perfection, even though it's a trivial event. I mean, striking a ball, who gives a shit, right? I mean, in the scheme of things, this is microscopically important. And yet, for that brief moment, I felt elevated. That is something that I like to experience, but to watch others do that leaves me unmoved, which I suppose is the whole point of watching sports. You're watching to see if somebody else achieves that moment of perfection. Whereas, it's somebody else's moment. It's not your own, I don't get it. It's like at the conclusion of the movie, where the character winds up, victorious and everybody's cheering. I can never really cheer because it's somebody else's victory. It's not my own. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I don't have that necessary response, partly because to me, and I don't even say this as someone who thinks about the architecture of the story, it's just the affirmation that the story reveals about whatever part of the reality of life you want to have. And to a certain extent, I imagine sports are in for a lot of people improvised stories in that regard as well. Hey, I see this team operating this way. Oh, they achieved it despite all of this, that, and the odds. And, the reality has been confirmed, or my notions of this, that, and the other are happy. I think that's part of it. I mean, I think that's why you can live vicariously through it. Yes, by and large, you would want to be the one participating in it, for sure. That would mean the success is yours. But there is something that can't be denied about, the seeing it perform in and of itself. I mean, this is why we read. This is why we watch movies. This is why we want to be entertained. That's part of the human makeup. That there is an energy that is absorbed into the system by watching stuff like this play out.
I don't know. I'm very ambivalent about it. But like I said, it's a weird thing. It's that of watching others participate, of watching others while you just sit there in the sidelines and vicariously experience a moment that you yourself could be experiencing. Yes, certainly to a lesser degree, with not so many bells and whistles and no big crowd, but you could still experience it. You see porn and it's like an orgy of incredibly good-looking bodies, right? Okay, but you can actually have sex and experience more or less the same thing. Yeah, and perhaps the bodies are not so lovely and perfect, and the lighting is not so flattering and all the rest of it, but it's real. It's yours. Isn't that more valuable? Oh, that's my thinking. That's my thinking on this topic.
Well, I don't want to have comments on your sex life. I can't.
And so on that note, this has been the Coach and Benway podcast. It's been a delight as always. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. And so, Dr. Benway, do you want to leave us with a final thought? A different thought than my sex life? Which is your final thought?
I don't know. I'll probably see you guys on Sunday football.
Yeah, my final thought is go and play the sport. Don't watch it. Watching a sport is just it's a word that we like to use in our set. It's for cucks. Cucks watch sports. Real men go and play them. Aha. Okay, so on that final note, thank you very much, and we will catch you later.